Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise Smiler, the newly appointed chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Before we begin, I would like to note for the record that we are holding this meeting via video conference with the board members and other participants in different locations due to the ongoing concerns brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Although we are remote, we have provided public access to the video and audio of this meeting through the board's website, as well as by publishing the call-in information for those who may not have internet access. Additionally, as always is the case, we have a court reporter present who will be transcribing this meeting. I would ask anyone who is called into this meeting or is using direct video link to please mute yourself until you need to participate. Also, for those who will be participating in this meeting, I would ask that before you speak, you identify yourself for the court reporter. First, I would like to introduce a new board member, Nadia Ralston. Ms. Ralston most recently held the position of Director of the Southeast Regional Office of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Office of the Governor, and previously held various positions within the Office of former Pennsylvania Representative and current United States Representative Dwight Evans. Welcome, Nadia. We look forward to working with you. All right, so let's get started. In addition to the 7 board members, we also have representing our ex officio members, George Augusto, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Richard, did anyone from Revenue sign in? I can't hear you, Richard. Now you're having audio problems. Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. Thank you all for joining us. A quorum of the board members being present, I will call today's proceedings to order. As the first order of business, I'd like to ask everyone to please join me for the rest of, wait a second, I'm sorry. Kristen Heidingsfelder just joined us. She's representing Dan Hassel, Secretary for the Department of Revenue. Thank you for joining us, Kristen. Good to see you.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I had some technical issues connecting from the office.
Oh, that's
Thanks.
okay. That's okay. All right, so I'd like everyone to join me for a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, by way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, August 10th, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. This meeting was also done via video conference. Additionally, I'd like to announce the board has scheduled a public input hearing relative to the Category 4 casino proposed for College Township, Center County by SC Gaming OpCo, LLC, and its principal, Ira Lupert. The public input hearing is scheduled for next Monday, August 16th, 2021, beginning at 4 p.m. It will be held at the Penn Stater Hotel and Conference Center. Any party interested in participating in this hearing or simply receiving more information should monitor the board's website or call 717-346-8300. We will now hear from our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole. Kevin?
Good morning, Chair Smiler and members of the board. On behalf of the staff of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, I too would like to welcome Commissioner Ralston to the board. We are looking forward to working with you. For my Executive Director's report this morning, I would like to acknowledge the successful completion of the test period by the new Hollywood Casino York, the second Category 4 casino to open in the Commonwealth. The test periods were held this past Saturday and Sunday, August 7th and August 8th. Hollywood Casino York will open to the public tomorrow, August 12th at 12 noon, and they will be the 15th casino in Pennsylvania. The new casino has 500 slot machines, 26 table games, a retail sports book, and an off-track betting race book. Of particular note with regards to this casino opening is the ability for patrons to utilize procedures for playing slot machines and table games in a cashless environment. Cashless technology to play slot machines and on a limited basis table games rolled out at several Pennsylvania casinos earlier this year. However, Hollywood Casino York brings that technology further for table games with cashless buy-ins at the gaming tables and gaming chip redemptions also processed at the gaming tables. These cashless procedures, adapted for a casino environment, were tested by the board's gaming laboratory and observed in the live rollout of the systems during the test dates previously mentioned. Our staff appreciated the opportunity to learn the cashless system and to be one of the first casino regulatory agencies to oversee fully cashless procedures for both slot players and table game players. That is my report for this morning, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we have the Director of Financial Management, Dave Wren. Dave?
Morning, Chair Smiler and board members. Today, I'd like to give a final report of board expenses for fiscal year 2020-2021. The fiscal year concluded June 30th, and although the year has ended, we still do receive a few additional invoices. So expenses that are reported today may change slightly over time. For the year, expenditures totaled $39.4 million against an appropriation of $43.4 million. Expenses overall were down $768,000 from the prior fiscal year. The board recorded expenditures of $35.4 million for salaries and benefits. This is 90% of the overall expenses for the year. The remaining 10% went for operating fixed assets. This amounted to $4 million. Personnel expenses consisted of $21.2 million for salaries, $14 million for benefits, and $255,000 for retirement leave payouts. Benefits as a percentage of salaries were 65%, and personnel expenses increased by $280,000 from fiscal year 2019-2020. In the operating category, nearly 90% of expenses consisted of three subcategories: rentals and leases at $1.8 million, services at $1.3 million, and this is primarily interagency billings and applicant fingerprint costs, and finally, other operating expenses at $530,000. And other operating expenses are largely database subscriptions for background investigations and for legal research. For the year, operating expenses decreased by over $1 million, or nearly 21% from the prior year. The biggest areas of savings in operations occurred in the areas of travel, use of IT consultants, and database services. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none. Thank you, Dave. Next, we have Danette Fixler-George, Human Resource Director. Danette?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, board members. The Office of Human Resources has two motions for your consideration today relative to the hiring of one individual and the ratification of the hiring of another individual per the authority granted to the Executive Director for vacancies at Hollywood York Casino. Presenting first is Megan Andrews. She has been selected as a licensing technician for the Special Services Unit in the Bureau of Licensing. She has completed the interview process, background investigation, and drug screening, and is recommended for hire by Sean Hannon, Director of Licensing. Unless you have any questions, I would ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring action as indicated.
Any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Arnoldo moved that the board approves the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is approved.
The second motion seeks to ratify the hiring of Monica Sneed as a casino compliance representative. Her hiring was approved by the executive director on August 2nd, 2021 for a position at Hollywood York Casino. This action is consistent with the board's order of July 14th, 2021, delegating authority to the board's executive director to approve hiring of individuals between board meetings to ensure adequate staffing at Hollywood York Casino. Per that same order, finalization of any hires between board meetings is contingent upon the board ratifying the executive director's action. As such, I ask that you consider a motion ratifying the hiring of Ms. Sneed.
Any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Dermody moves that the board ratify the executive director's hiring as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Arnoldo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
Thank you.
adopted. Thank you, Danette.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chief Counsel Doug Sherman, who is still with us. But before you begin, Doug, I want to pause for a moment. As many of the people in attendance today are aware, this is Doug's last public meeting with the board, as he'll be retiring in early September after more than 15 years of service to the board and 35 years of service to the Commonwealth. I believe I speak for the entire board when I say that your service to the board has been nothing short of excellent, and I believe it would be accurate to state that you have significantly shaped how the board operates day in and day out. Additionally, you have always provided well-reasoned legal advice, regardless of the nature of the matter coming before the board, and helped to serve our primary objective, protecting the public, without being unduly restrictive to the industry. So on behalf of the board, Doug, I want to thank you and wish you the best in whatever your future holds. I don't know if any of my colleagues wish to say anything at this time.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Mustio. I'd like to second your comments and thank you, Doug, for your counsel to me over the couple years that I've been on the board. Madam Chair, this is Sean, just echoing what both you said and Commissioner Mustio. Doug, you've been just a fabulous resource for all of us. And your counsel has, as Madam Chair said, has been thoughtful and always wise. We will truly miss you and wish you best whatever your next chapter holds. But you will be absolutely, I know everybody is replaceable, but you will be a tough act to follow. Best of luck to you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Arnoldo, just the same thing as my colleagues have said. Doug, you have really been helpful. Any questions to get back to, you've gotten back to. Even some that I would say I didn't really, I wouldn't say I didn't like, but it was just the law, right? So I'm not a lawyer, so I try to, think different things, but I would just say you really have been a help, and we will miss you. Thank you for your service. 35 years, it's a long time.
Anyone else?
Just Doug, it's Fran Regan. I'm sorry that we only got to work together for a couple of months, but I wish you the best of luck in retirement. And as everyone else said, you're going to be missed.
Yes, this is Commissioner Ralston. I echo what Commissioner Fran said. I hope that we didn't chase you away after 35 years. I'm sorry that I didn't get to work with you more, but I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Madam Chair, this is Dermody. I also like to say, Doug, thank you. You've been tremendously helpful in the short period of time I've been on the board, and I appreciate your help and good luck.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all of the board members. Kevin, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Doug, on behalf of the staff and on behalf of myself personally, would like to thank you very much for the many years of service to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board and your steady guidance on so many legal issues. that arise as part of the work that we do here at the Gaming Control Board. So thank you and good luck in the future.
Thank you, everybody, for the very kind words. Over 15 years ago, I came to the Office of Chief Counsel, and like so many of the people that came here, we were all very green, and we had very few people with experience in the gaming industry. But through the concerted efforts of many, we worked to implement that original piece of legislation to get the casinos licensed, to get slot machine gaming up and running, then the amendments with table games and amendments more recently with VGTs and iGaming and sports wagering and so much more. And the people here aren't green anymore. We work with a lot of experienced professionals that are highly respected in the industry. And I'm very proud to have worked beside the people here at the board to help our industry develop into a premier gaming jurisdiction in the United States. And I certainly don't mean to overlook anyone, but I've learned so much about gaming from Kevin O'Toole and people like Cyrus Petrie and Paul Morrow, Heather Warner, Paul Resch, Kevin Kyle, Chris Schroeder, Sean Hannon, Claire Yantis have all provided a very collegial environment in which we can work together and have reasoned disagreements, but always try to come out to make the agency run smoothly with the goal of making it work. And in the Office of Chief Counsel, I'm only as good as the team that I have around me. Sean Kovach has been my assistant for 15 years, and she probably deserves more credit for the success of the Office of Chief Counsel than anybody else, because she keeps everybody organized and on track. And Lisa McLean and her attorneys have helped push all the applicants through the queue to make sure they get licensed and so they can get operating for the good of the Commonwealth. Steve Cook and his attorneys have performed superbly over the years in handling almost any issue that's come down the pike. And our legislative liaisons, Dan Stambaugh and Max Flessner, have taught me more about the legislative process than I ever learned from Schoolhouse Rock segment I'm Just a Bill. And finally, I think I'm probably the only counsel here. I've served 27 different commissioners, all of who have brought diverse backgrounds and various points of view, which have contributed to my development and made the job interesting and energizing year in and year out. And I'll always be thankful for those relationships and the opportunities provided to me by this board. So as I go into whatever phase of this retirement is, I'm going to take a little time, look back on this 15 years with fond memories, cherish the friendships that I've made here, and be thankful for the opportunities that all of you have given to me. So with that, I think we have some business to take care of. So today the board has for your consideration 3 petitions. Each petition will be decided based upon the documentary record by agreement of the parties. In each of these, and in each of the matters, the board has in advance of the meeting been provided with all of the documents filed prior to today. The first petition before the board today pertains to Mount Airy No. 1 LLC and Mount Airy Holdco LLC. Mount Airy No. 1 is the Category 2 slot machine licensee, which operates as Mount Airy Casino Resort. Mount Airy Holdco is the entity which holds Mount Airy No. 1, or which owns it, and is itself owned by 7 trusts benefiting various members of the DeNaples family. Mount Airy is refinancing a portion of its debt, and the parties are requesting approval from the board to permit certain payments from that refinancing to go to Mount Airy Holdco, which in turn will use that money to pay back Louis DeNaples a portion of money he had loaned to Mount Airy Holdco with prior board approval about 10 years ago. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the parties' request, and the parties have also requested that the board maintain certain information in the pleadings as confidential. However, some of that information is, for which they sought confidentiality, is actually already in the public domain, and as a result, a grant of confidentiality of everything would be inappropriate. We would suggest that confidentiality would only flow to a portion which would be outlined in the board's order. And this petition is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Chair, this is Frank Dermody. I just wanted to note that I have known Lewiston Naples, members of his family, since I was in high school, but I don't think it'll, prevent me from being fair and impartial in this vote today.
Thank you, Commissioner Dermody. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Mount Airy No. 1 LLC's and Mount Airy Holdco LLC's petition to approve certain payments as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the condition requested by the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I further move that the board grant the parties' requests for confidentiality in part as will be outlined in the board's order.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is approved.
Next before the board is Betfair Interactive US and FanDuel PA's petition for approval of restructuring. Betfair Interactive provides interactive gaming and sports wagering operations in the Commonwealth, while FanDuel PA is a fantasy contest operator. Both companies fall under the Flutter Entertainment PLC family of companies, and both operate under the FanDuel brand. Flutter now desires to create a new entity, FanDuel Group PLC, within their corporate structure. This company will have an indirect 95% ownership stake in the petitioners, and as a result, board approval is required of the creation of the new entity. Petitioners also seek to have FanDuel Group PLC immediately qualified to do business in the Commonwealth. However, that request is not authorized under the board's regulations, and FanDuel Group PLC must go through the licensing process just as any other entity would. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the parties' request for reorganization, subject to conditions outlined in their answer. OEC does object to the request that the new entity, FanDuel Group, be granted a license, and under the condition, or suggest that they apply for principal licensure and proceed through the board's usual licensing process, which would be appropriate. Finally, in addition, the parties have requested that certain information be maintained as confidential, and we would agree that confidentiality of that information is appropriate, and the matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board grant Betfair Interactive US LLC's and FanDuel PA LLC's petition in part as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the conditions requested by the Office of Enforcement Counsel. I further move that the board grant the petitioner's request for confidentiality and that the Office of Enforcement's request for confidentiality be granted in part as will be described in the board's order.
I have a second.
Commissioner Ralston seconds the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The last petition before the board today is a request from an individual with the initials JK to be removed from the board's self-exclusion list. On December 29th, 2007, JK placed himself on the self-exclusion list and chose the lifetime exclusion option. Board regulations now allow for an individual who chose the lifetime exclusion option to petition the board for removal from the self-exclusion list after 10 years have elapsed from the date they placed themselves on the list, so long as they complete a problem gambling assessment and follow through on any recommendations made as a result of that assessment. On July 15th of this year, 13 and a half years since placing himself on the list, JK filed a petition to be removed from the self-exclusion list. JK states that he's not the same person he was 13 and a half years ago, that he's matured, and that he no longer has a problem with gambling and therefore would like to be removed. In accordance with the board's regulations, JK also provided with the petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that he has conducted an assessment of JK and that no further treatment is recommended as a result of the assessment. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has confirmed the authenticity of the assessment and has no objection to JK's removal from the self-exclusion list. And this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Put her name in.
How do I open it? How do I get like the mute off?
I don't think that's a question or comment, but on this matter. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant JK's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you, Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. I believe Commissioner Regan is having some audio problems. Richard, if you could help her out. That would be appreciated.
She is back on audio. Just getting a video signal.
Okay, Commissioner Regan, were you in favor of the last motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next presenting withdrawals and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Thank you. Before I begin, Chair Smiler, I too, at the risk of giving Mr. Sherman a much bigger head than he already has, I too would like to, on behalf of the Office of Chief Counsel, wish him well in his retirement. We've been fortunate to have Doug's leadership in this office for the past 13 years. His knowledge, skills, friendship, and certainly his sense of humor will certainly be missed. But after 35 years of state service, he clearly has earned this retirement, and I can only hope that he finds his way back to me personally to buy me a burger and a couple of beers, as he's done so frequently over the years. So best of luck, Doug. We wish you well. I know the next chapter will be exciting in whatever path you take. Good luck.
Steve.
The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and businesses: Marina District Development Company, LLC, Marina District Development Holding Company, LLC, Mac Corp, Mirage Resorts, LLC, Scott Charles Butera, Marcus Gerard Glover, Joseph A. Cordo, Corey Ian Sanders, Robert Colcord Selwood, Venithra Sankaran, Full-Time Fantasy Sports, LLC, Richard M. Hadrill, Dimitri Reiderman, Desiree Rogers, and Christopher Strano. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals and surrenders, and as a result, if the board were to grant same today, they would be doing so without prejudice to each of these parties. These matters are now ripe for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next before the board for consideration are 6 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the evidentiary record for each matter, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. And additionally, the persons that are the subject of each of these reports and recommendations have been notified that the board would be taking their matter up today and that they could phone in and briefly address the board. The first report and recommendation before the board pertains to Stacy Natal. Ms. Natal was issued a gaming employee occupation permit in January of 2018 and was employed as a table games dealer at Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh. On March 31st, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency suspension of Ms. Natal's gaming employee occupation permit after receiving notice that Ms. Natal had been charged with felony and misdemeanor theft offenses. Specifically, on December 11th, 2020, Ms. Natal was on the gaming floor at the Meadows Racetrack and Casino, where she picked up a wallet belonging to another patron and thereafter used the victim's debit card to make 3 cash withdrawals totaling $1,400. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency suspension, suspending Ms. Natal's permit as requested by Enforcement Counsel. A hearing in this matter was held on April 20th, 2021. Enforcement Counsel appeared, offering both testimony and documentary evidence. Ms. Natal also appeared but did not testify or present any evidence. Based upon the evidence received by the hearing officer, the report and recommendation recommends that Ms. Natal's suspension continue as the criminal charges remain pending, and that is the recommendation to the board today.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding suspension of Stacy Natal's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Canolo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next before the board is the report and recommendation pertaining to Len Strazzeri. On March 19th, 2021, Mr. Strazzeri submitted a gaming employee occupation permit seeking work as a table games dealer at the Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. The Office of Enforcement Counsel sent a notice recommending denial of Mr. Strazzeri's application based upon a 2013 criminal conviction in New Jersey for leaving the scene of a fatal accident. Specifically, on July 9th, 2012, Mr. Strazzeri, while driving through an intersection, hit a person on a scooter who was in the crosswalk, and that person later died due to those injuries. While it was determined that Mr. Strazzeri had a green light at the intersection and the incident was in fact an accident, Mr. Strazzeri's failure to stop triggered the criminal charges and conviction. Upon receiving the recommendation for denial, Mr. Strazzeri requested a hearing before the Office of Hearings and Appeals, and that hearing was held on June 8th, 2021. Enforcement Counsel attended the hearing, presented both testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Strazzeri also appeared at the hearing and testified that as a result of his conviction, he served 3 months in prison, 9 months in a halfway house, and 9 months in a halfway house before being released on parole. He additionally testified that he has worked in the gaming industry for approximately 30 years, is licensed as a dealer in New Jersey, and works at Harrah's in Atlantic City. He basically seeks to work in Philadelphia since it's closer to his home. After hearing all of the evidence presented, however, the report and recommendation issued finds that the Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act prohibits Mr. Strazzeri from obtaining a gaming permit until 15 years have passed from the date of his New Jersey conviction, as under the Pennsylvania law, that conviction is a felony. And that's the recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Canolo moved that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearing and Appeals regarding the denial of Leo Strazzeri's gaming employee occupation permit application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next report and recommendation pertains to an individual with the initials JM, and that individual's request to recover funds confiscated while on the board's self-exclusion list. The hearing in this matter was held on June 2nd, 2021. OEC appeared presenting evidence, and JM, however, failed to appear at the hearing despite requesting it. The evidence presented at the hearing established that on October 5th, 2019, JM met with a board employee and requested to be placed on the board's exclusion list for 1 year. On February 27th, 2020, less than 1 year later, during his period of self-exclusion, JM entered the Parks Casino and bought into a table game for $100. He played 4 hands before being identified as self-excluded, and at that time, $200 in gaming chips were confiscated from him, and he was removed from the property. JM thereafter filed his petition requesting a return of the $200 confiscated. After hearing the evidence presented, the hearing officer in this matter concluded that JM is entitled to recover $100 of the $200 confiscated, as that was his buy-in into the table game and therefore not winnings, And that is the recommendation to the board.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeal regarding JM's petition for recovery of funds while on the PGCB's involuntary exclusion list, that the petition be granted in part and that JM recover $100 confiscated from him that were not winnings.
Commissioner Mustia seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next before the board is a petition seeking to recover $80,000 in monies wagered and lost while lawfully engaged in interactive gaming. This matter was brought by an individual with the initials MN. A hearing in this matter was held on May 4th, 2021, with both MN and OEC appearing and offering evidence, including stipulated facts. The evidence presented at the hearing showed that in January 2020, MN opened an account with Betfair Interactive LLC, doing business as FanDuel Sportsbook. He later suspended his account for 6 months as permitted by the board's regulations. During that 6 months period of suspension, a representative of FanDuel contacted MN and spoke to him about bonuses available to him upon the reactivation of his account. After MN's self-imposed account suspension ended on July 25th, 2020, MN deposited money into his FanDuel Sportsbook account, and FanDuel added free play in an amount equal to 18.75% of his deposit. After gaming for a few days, MN withdrew money from his account and again suspended his ability to play for 1 month. During this period of time, MN contacted his representative at FanDuel, informing them that he would make another deposit at the conclusion of his suspension if they provided him with a bonus similar to what they had done previously. This was agreed to, and at the conclusion of that self-imposed suspension, MN deposited money into his account, and FanDuel added another 20% in compensatory play. 1 day later, MN withdrew money from his account and again suspended his account, this time for 4 months. MN now seeks to recover monies lost during this period of time. MN argues that while the wagers he made were not made during period of self-imposed suspension and were therefore legal wagers, that FanDuel violated the board's regulations by speaking with him during those periods of suspension. After hearing all of the evidence presented, the board's hearing officer issued a report and recommendation concluding that MN's petition should be dismissed, as neither the Gaming Act nor the board's regulations permit the board to adjudicate a dispute between a patron and a gaming companies about monies lost while lawfully gaming. I would note that the record in this matter does indicate that the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement is investigating whether FanDuel improperly communicated with MN during his periods of suspension, and it is possible an enforcement action will come against FanDuel in the future, but that is a separate matter from MN's request in this matter. So this matter is now ready for the board's consideration. Again, the recommendation of the hearing officer was that MN's petition be dismissed as the board lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate it.
Any questions or comments from the board? Actually, Steve, MN did not name FanDuel in its petition at all, did it?
Correct. MN was not a party in this particular proceeding, no.
Thank you. Are there no other questions or comments? May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustia moves that the board dismiss MN's petition for recovery of funds for the lack of jurisdiction.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation pertaining to Franklin Hollins. By way of background, on February 2nd, 2021, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Hollins on the board's involuntary exclusion list after it was discovered that on January 21st, 2020, while gaming at Rivers, Philadelphia, Mr. Hollins capped a wager, resulting in him winning $240 to which he was not entitled. As a result of his actions, he was permanently evicted from Rivers, Philadelphia. and he was charged with a summary offense. A hearing in this matter was held on May 13th, 2021. Both OEC and Mr. Hollins appeared offering evidence. Mr. Hollins admitted to his actions and expressed remorse. He testified that at the time of this occurrence, he was in a bad state of depression as he had recently lost custody of his son due to allegations made by the boy's mother, which also resulted in his being incarcerated before ultimately being acquitted of any criminal charges. He also indicated that he'd been drinking on the night of this incident. Mr. Hollins stated that since this 2020 incident, he has joined Gamblers Anonymous. He no longer visits casinos. He has a new job, helps others with gambling problems, and attends counseling relative to his gambling issue on a regular basis. Based upon the evidence received, the report and recommendation in this matter recommends that Mr. Hollins be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list for his conduct, but after 2 years, he be given the ability to petition the board for removal from the list. And that's the recommendation to the board.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the placement of Franklin Hollins on PGCB's involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Rebecca Yandali. On September 29th, 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Ms. Yandali on the board's involuntary exclusion list after it was discovered that on November 16th, 2019, Ms. Yandali left her 4-year-old daughter alone in their hotel room at the Wind Creek Casino Hotel. A hearing in this matter was held on April 7th, 2021. OEC appeared presenting testimony and documentary evidence. Ms. Yandoli also appeared and testified on her own behalf. Evidence received at the hearing showed that Ms. Yandoli left her daughter in the hotel room at approximately 1 a.m. while she gamed at the casino. At approximately 3:45 a.m., Ms. Yandali's daughter left the hotel room and attempted to enter several other hotel rooms before taking the elevator to the hotel lobby, where she was discovered by Wind Creek staff and taken to the front desk. Ms. Yandali was then found on the gaming floor. She was arrested and charged with endangering the welfare of a child. At the hearing, Ms. Yandali expressed remorse and indicated that after her arrest, she enrolled in parenting classes and now attends regular Alcoholics Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous meetings. She also testified that she's ashamed and humiliated by her actions and that her arrest has affected career opportunities. Ms. Yandali further stated that she is not interested in gaming in Pennsylvania casinos and has no objection to her exclusion, but requested her exclusion not be publicly posted on the board's website as she is concerned about the negative effects that will have on her finding employment. I would note for the record that the Gaming Act requires that persons that are placed on the board's excluded persons list, the act requires that that list be publicly maintained on the board's website. So essentially, Ms. Yandali's request for relief is not something the board can grant. The hearing officer reached the same conclusion and recommends that Ms. Yandali be placed on the board's exclusion list. And this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I just have one for, I guess, either Steve, Kevin, and maybe Cyrus. Did we look into the process and procedures that Wind Creek Casino and Hotel followed? Was it fine? I mean, it seems like the timeframe's fitting here.
Commissioner Logan, if I may.
Sure.
Cyrus Petrie, P-I-T-R-E, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Yes, when we did look into it, Wind Creek did respond appropriately to the matter. However, we have completed an assessment of Wind Creek, and we are in the process of having discussions with them regarding some of their other procedures regarding incidents of this nature. So that matter will be presented to the board
at a future board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Cyrus. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the placement of Rebecca Yandoli on the PGCB's involuntary exclusion list, and that should be placed on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
And that concludes the matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Steve. Next, we have the Bureau of Licensing Matters with Director Sean Hannon. Sean?
Good morning, Madam Chair Smiler and members of the board. Before the board today will be license consideration of one table game manufacturer renewal, one slot machine manufacturer renewal, and one video game terminal establishment. In addition, there will be 628 principal, key employee, gaming, and non-gaming employees, as well as qualifier applicants. Finally, there will be consideration of 10 gaming service provider applicants. First, for your consideration are table game and slot machine manufacturer renewal licenses for Konami Gaming Incorporated. Konami Gaming is a Nevada-based manufacturer of table games, slot machines, and associated equipment for use or play at licensed facilities in the Commonwealth. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. Konami Gaming has asked the board grant its reduced licensing fee for its table game manufacturer license. The fee for the license is $150,000. The Gaming Act allows the board to modify the fee for a table game manufacturer if it determines that the fee will unreasonably limit table game devices or associated equipment. Under the reduced licensing fee policy, Konami Gaming is eligible to receive a reduced fee of $15,000 for a 5-year license. The Bureau of Licensing recommends that the board grant the reduced fee. I have provided you with draft orders and ask that the board first consider the order to renew the table game manufacturer license for Konami Gaming Incorporated, as well as the reduced license fee.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the table game manufacturer renewal license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Canola seconds.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
And next would be to consider the order to renew Konami's slot machine manufacturer license.
Once again, the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Canola moved that the board grants the slot machine manufacturer renewal license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion is adopted.
Next, we have consideration of a VGT establishment license for Last Minute Mart Incorporated. VGT establishments are truck stops seeking to have a terminal operator licensee place VGTs at their location. Last Minute Mart was previously conditionally licensed. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has now completed its investigation, including evaluation that the applicant meets the VGT establishment eligibility criteria in the Gaming Act. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. Once fully licensed, an establishment can continue forward toward completing the steps necessary to commence VGT operations. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license Last Minute Mart Incorporated, which is located at 1641 Perry Highway in Portersville.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
In addition, there are principal and key employee licenses for your consideration. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a proposed order for 9 principals and 3 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Mustio moves that the board, whoops, I'm sorry, we just received an email on a correction and I was reviewing that.
Okay.
Apologize. Bear with me here. I just moved my pages. Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next are temporary licenses. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with an order regarding the issuance of a temporary license for one principal and 10 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a list of 392 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 202 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for one non-gaming employee. The applicant was notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request a hearing within the specified time frame. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with an order addressing the applicant who the Office of Enforcement Council has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the order approving the denial.
Enforcement Council continues to recommend denial of this application.
Thank you. May I have a motion? Oh, any questions or comments from the board? I'm sorry. Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board deny the non-gaming employee application as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify the following gaming service providers: Better Collective Tennessee LLC, doing business as Roto Grinders; Better Collective USA Incorporated, doing business as Better Collective; The Action Network Incorporated; Hartman Concrete Incorporated; Poker Royalty LLC; the Berlin Steel Construction Company; and William A.J. Schaefer Sons Incorporated. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order certifying these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Knodel moves that the board approves the gaming server provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is adopted.
And finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 3 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
This concludes the Bureau of Licensing matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. We will now hear from Chief Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 10 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 1 consent agreement, 1 suspension, 3 revocations, and 5 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 2 licensee Sugar House HSP Gaming LP, doing business as Rivers Casino Philadelphia. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for Rivers Philadelphia are present, and at this time I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record.
Tom Scott, Director of Surveillance.
John Donnelly on behalf of Sugar House Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. I have Tom Scott, who is Director of Surveillance, SCOTT, on the video. Angela Hardesty will also be on HARDESY. She's Director of Compliance. And I'm John Donnelly, DONNELLY.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is John Crow, CROHE, for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on this agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement reached between Sugar House HSP Gaming LP, doing business as Rivers Casino Philadelphia, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding a violation of internal controls concerning surveillance. On January 24th, 2021, at approximately 6:30 a.m., a patron dispute occurred wherein a patron lost a $300 bet at Spanish 21 table SP805 and deliberately did not allow the table games dealer to retrieve the losing wager. Rivers Philadelphia security responded to the incident, and the patron continued to argue with Rivers Philadelphia staff. In an attempt to resolve the altercation, security shift manager Ryan Sullivan then went to the surveillance viewing room, recorded surveillance coverage of the disputed hand on his personal cell phone, then returned to the casino floor and showed it to the patron, who subsequently allowed the $300 bet to be collected. The patron was permanently evicted from Rivers Philadelphia. The recording of surveillance footage by security shift manager Ryan Sullivan was confirmed by the Rivers Philadelphia surveillance officers and table game shift manager who were present in the surveillance viewing room at the time. The table game shift manager stated that he did not question Mr. Sullivan, as they assumed he had permission to record the footage, and did not question the incident until seeing Mr. Sullivan showing the footage to the patron on the gaming floor. The surveillance shift manager on duty was not present in the surveillance viewing room at the time of this incident and was unaware that Mr. Sullivan recorded the footage and showed it to the patron on the gaming floor until after the incident occurred. No disciplinary action was taken against surveillance shift manager Ryan Sullivan by Rivers Philadelphia. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Rivers Philadelphia respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, that Rivers Philadelphia pay a civil penalty of $7,500 as well as $2,500 for an administrative fee for the costs incurred by the board staff in connection with investigations into this matter.
Thank you, John. Mr. Donnelly, do you or your clients have wished to say anything? And if your clients wish to speak, they need to be sworn by the court reporter prior to making any statements.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to what Mr. Crow, we agree with the recitation. But we have made, the only thing I will add is we've made some changes to the SOPs that make it plain that no video recordings are to be taken and removed unless it's to appropriate regulatory agencies, and also posted a sign to that effect. Prior to that time, it was permitted to remove same if the security or surveillance shift manager were present. Security, or I keep bumbling the two. Surveillance shift manager was not present on this occasion because he was on a break. Going forward, that won't be permitted. Table games, for example, will not be able to access the security cameras and take pictures, et cetera. So in the future, it will only be through those videos will only be available to authorized agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. So you're saying that Mr. Scott and Ms. Hardesty are not going to testify or make statements today?
No, unless, of course, if the board members have any questions, they're available.
Okay, actually, are there any questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Sugar House HSP Gaming LP as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next four matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the suspension or revocation of gaming employee occupation permits or non-gaming employee registrations issued by the board. The complaints have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each named respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller will provide a brief summary of the facts and make the request for the appropriate board action in each matter.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Scott Byerly. Mr. Byerly was employed as a security ambassador at Live Casino Pittsburgh. The Bureau of Casino Compliance received notification that Mr. Byerly was discovered gaming at a slot machine at Live Casino Pittsburgh while off duty. Board regulations prohibit a permitted employee from gaming at the facility at which he or she is employed and for 30 days after the individual leaves employment with that facility. After being confronted, Mr. Byerly became hostile and argumentative with the Live Pittsburgh personnel. Mr. Byerly was terminated from his employment for his actions. Mr. Byerly is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Scott Byerly.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Scott Byerly's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Nicholas Candeloro. Mr. Candeloro was employed as a security officer at Parks Casino. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Candeloro was arrested by the Middletown Township Police Department in Bucks County and charged with felony rape, felony sexual assault, and lesser included offenses. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Candeloro is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Nicholas Candeloro.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the suspension of Nicholas Candelaro's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rashawn McMillan. Mr. McMillan was employed as an EVS attendant at Rivers Philadelphia Casino. The Bureau of Casino Compliance received notification that the Rivers Philadelphia Surveillance Department received a call from a manager at Jack's Grill regarding a missing iPad from the hostess desk. A review was conducted which revealed that Mr. McMillan picked up the iPad, put it in his pants, and took it to the employee locker room. Mr. McMillan was later contacted at home and returned the iPad. Mr. McMillan was not criminally charged for his actions. However, he was terminated by Rivers Philadelphia for his conduct. He is not currently employed at any Pennsylvania licensed facility. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rashawn McMillan.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the revocation of Rashawn McMillan's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Kernodle seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to David Watson. Mr. Watson was employed as an EVS attendant at Valley Forge Casino Resort. The Bureau of Casino Compliance received notification that Mr. Watson, while working at Valley Forge, picked up a patron's wallet from the gaming floor and placed it in his pocket. Mr. Watson made no attempt to turn the wallet in, and when confronted, he admitted to taking the wallet. Mr. Watson was terminated from his employment for his actions. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to David Watson.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Kernodle moves that the board approves the revocation of David Watson's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Dustin Miller, once again, on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter for the board's consideration is a petition to place Theophilus Berry on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Berry left his 8-year-old daughter unattended in his vehicle while he went inside Rivers Casino Philadelphia and placed sports wagers. Mr. Berry was confronted by Rivers Philadelphia security personnel and escorted back to his vehicle. The child was unattended for approximately 20 minutes. Mr. Berry was permanently evicted from Rivers Casino Philadelphia. No criminal charges were filed. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requested the board place Theophilus Berry on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I do, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Logan.
Cyrus, do we know why no charges were filed?
Commissioner Logan, if you remember, we had a consent agreement in June, and also there were some procedures in place where state police did not feel that they retained the jurisdiction of the parking lot area. So that has now been resolved. This matter, there will be several cleanup matters coming before the board with exclusions, but all those matters have been since resolved between Rivers Philadelphia, Philly PD, and state police, and everyone's on the same page now.
Okay, thank you, Cyrus. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. And any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the addition of Theophilus Berry to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Mara Comport on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Ms. Comport attempted to enter Rivers Casino Pittsburgh. However, security officers stationed at the entry point denied her entry because she was visibly intoxicated. Ms. Comport refused to leave and became verbally abusive towards casino staff. During efforts to remove Ms. Comport from the property, she spat on a member of the casino staff and struck a Pennsylvania state trooper in the face. Ms. Comport was taken into custody and criminally charged. Ms. Comport entered a negotiated guilty plea and was issued a lifetime ban from the Rivers property. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Mara Comport on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
This is the item I referenced earlier that's been modified on our agenda. Madam Chair, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the addition of Mara Comport to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter for the board's consideration is a petition to place Kenneth Zarnecki on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Zarnecki was observed in possession of what appeared to be firearm ammunition while inside Live Casino Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania State Police responded to Mr. Zarnecki's location and discovered that in addition to ammunition, Mr. Zarnecki was in possession of a loaded firearm and multiple knives. Mr. Zarnecki did not have a concealed carry permit for his handgun, and he was criminally charged. That charge remains pending against him in the Court of Common Pleas of Westmoreland County. Mr. Zarnecki was permanently evicted from Live Casino Pittsburgh. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Kenneth Zarnecki on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Kenneth Zarnecki to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Regan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The next matter for the board's consideration is a petition to place Marcus Davis, also known as Terrence D. Wilson, on the board's involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Davis passed 38 counterfeit $100 bills at Wind Creek Bethlehem Casino. All of the bills were older style bills bearing the same serial number. Mr. Davis was criminally charged for his actions. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requested the board place Marcus Davis, also known as Terrence D. Wilson, on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Marcus Davis, AKA Terrence D. Wilson, to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
The final matter on the agenda is a request to place David Moore on the involuntary exclusion list. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Moore entered Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, and after watching a patron engage in slot play, Mr. Moore approached the patron at the machine, took a voucher valued at $158.61 from the patron's pocket, and attempted to flee the property. Mr. Moore was apprehended after he fell on the gaming floor trying to escape. Mr. Moore was permanently banned from Harrah's and was criminally charged. Mr. Moore entered a negotiated guilty plea to the charge. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place David Moore on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of David Moore to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Konolo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I don't see Doug Sherman on. Oh, there he is. I don't see his face, but I know he can hear me. I just want to express my sincere depression over Doug's retirement. Doug once described our relationship as brothers. We team together and fight against anybody who attacks the agency or attacks our position. But when there's no one to fight with, we fight with each other. And I will truly miss my workplace brother from another mother. And I wish him well in the future. And Doug, don't be a stranger.
Thank you, Cyrus. I've always appreciated working with you. And as you said, we've had each other's back and we've been at each other's throats, and I'd have it no other way.
Well, Doug, I think it suffices to say that you were very well regarded and you will be very much missed. And again, we wish you the very best in your future endeavors, whatever they may be.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, September 15th at 2021 at 10 a.m. Given these uncertain times, I would advise that all interested parties monitor the board's website for the latest information as to how that meeting will be conducted. So, that being said, I have a motion to adjourn my first meeting that I chaired.
Madam Chair, it's been a pleasure, and I move to adjourn.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.